You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
And joining us now here in studio, we are so thrilled to have her here. We have Congresswoman Lisa McClain from the great state of Michigan. And Congresswoman, first of all, we're delighted to have you here in New York. This is great. And you've got next to you, you have three dapper men in the studio here. John Katzimatidis, of course, and also Judge Richard Weinberg, and also former Deputy New York City Mayor Rudy Washington. Congresswoman, your reaction, first of all, to the debate last night.
Listen, I think J.D. Vance crushed it. I thought he did a great job of contrasting the two campaigns. He talked about, you got one person, Donald Trump, who's actually done the job, and under his leadership with his 4 years in office, peace in the Middle East. We were talking about the Abraham Accords, right? Crime was down, economy was booming, our southern border was secure. And he contrasted that with the Biden-Harris administration and Harris's campaign. She talked a lot about, well, when I become president, here's what I'm going to do. Okay, well, you're vice president and you're in the White House right now. What have you done? Nothing. So I thought he did a great job of comparing and contrasting. And
I thought he did a good job also of reminding people. I mean, because she's trying to come out and say, okay, she's the brand new thing out there. And yet, he did a great job saying, look, she's been there 3.5 years plus, reminding everybody. Rudy Washington, you were going to say?
Well, not only that, she was 4 years in the Senate. I mean, so where were the bills? Where were you advocating for anything? Why weren't you making noise in the Senate?
She was making noise. She was equating ICE to KKK. Right. That was the noise. I mean, that speaks volumes, too. I mean, of their position. And the other thing we were just talking about, Congresswoman Lisa McClain, is that Walz last night, it seemed like an epiphany to him when J.D. Vance, who was next to him, was saying, look at the damage that's happening to our cities, because of illegal immigration, and brought up, immigrant crime, just the overwhelming on the healthcare system. And boy, we should be taking care of America first. You almost looked at it was like he was talking from Mars, was the way Tim Walz's reaction. Your thought about just how out of touch they are, I think, with the average American.
Well, they've spun so many lies, they can't remember what's true and what's not. That they're in the and I might remind Tim Walz, your city burned. I mean, did you forget about that?
Like, and nobody asked him about that last night, Congresswoman.
Most respectfully, it's not that it just burned. He let it happen. And his wife thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, she romanticized. Remember about the smell? Yeah. When Walz thought it was the smell of freedom.
Don't leave out your VP raising money.
Yes.
To bail people out of jail.
That's right. Kamala Harris raised money for the Minnesota Freedom Fund that bailed out the rioters. And where were the moderators last night? That was the other thing. I've moderated debates.
They were in the tank.
Yeah, that was crazy. How could you not ask him about, there was not a question about crime. There was a question about guns, but not crime.
Right. I mean, that we see that all the time with these moderators. Look at the Trump debate.
Oh, my goodness. That was an ambush. That wasn't a debate.
100%. And really no different last night is I thought they weren't fact checking. Oh, I forgot we are fact checking. But there again, I give J.D. Vance a lot of credit. He's like, whoa, time out. So if you're going to fact check, let's talk about Springfield. Let me correct the truth with the other half of the truth. So I give him credit for not backing down and doing it in a very respectful manner. I also thought he had command of the stage, right? As vice president, what you say and how you say matters. And I thought he had great command of the stage as opposed to, I mean, Walz was shell-shocked a little bit.
How about when he said the line of the night that we haven't talked to, when he said, there were a couple ones, but where he said, I have friends who are school shooters. Right. I thought, that's where I wish J.D. Vance, I wish he had said, wait a minute.
He looked like a man who knew he was over his head. It was not entitled to be in a big
With the
league
eyes
game.
popping out.
But
It was
he did get one thing right. He's like, sometimes I am a knucklehead. He did.
We all can agree with that, Congresswoman.
Do you wish also, Congresswoman, because you're on so many committees, you're a member, of course, of the House Armed Services Committee, Committee on Education, Workforce, House Budget Committee, one of the great members of Congress out there. You go, girl. I love that. Your thoughts about what, the missed moments there last night, even on the issues of like China. They asked him about the misspeak, but they didn't ask about what about all your visits to China. He claimed it was, for, helping the youth out there with education. Come on.
Again, they tell so many lies, they can't keep it straight. I mean, at the end of the day, and it's really sad. I think the people want answers to what are you doing to fix my economy? Right? What are you doing to secure our border? What are you doing to address the issue of crime? What about the housing crisis? No answers on that.
Well, Congresswoman, they even did a follow-up on, where would you put the federal land in that? I'm sitting there like our city is burning. Crime is through the roof. Missiles are flying in the Middle East.
Fentanyl's coming in.
Fentanyl's coming in. A couple 100,000 Americans have died. You can go on. And we're talking about, how's it? Where are you going to put the federal land? Where the hell? I couldn't believe it. And they did follow-ups on it.
Yes, and didn't spend any time talking
on
about
crime.
crime.
And we're on the verge of a world war, a third world war, because of the ineptitude of Biden and Harris.
Yeah, barely a reference just at the beginning about what's going on, and no reference on Russia, Ukraine. I mean, I'm sitting there thinking the world's on fire, and they're talking about climate change.
Yep. And that's how out of touch they are, right? The world, as you said, the world is burning. And it all started with the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. That's where it all started. I mean, our adversaries took note of that, and they smelled weakness, and they capitalized on it, right? Weakness breeds aggression, and that's why you see what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening in Israel. Remember, under President Trump, love him or hate him, you can't deny the facts. And, let's not let the facts get in the way of a good story here. But we were talking about the Abraham Accords and peace in the Middle East yesterday when over 200 missiles were shot into Israel. We barely have a mention of that.
Yes, and also, did you hear the answer, Congresswoman, too? When JD Vance was very clear, we support Israel, whatever it wants to do. It goes to Waltz at first. He was like, Iran, Israel, he wasn't sure who the enemy was. I mean, that was really scary to me. It was like he was trying to remember what the right line was as opposed to speaking from the heart.
100%. And that's the problem. They prepare for the debates. They don't prepare with answers on how to help the American people on real issues. They try and recall what the canned answer is going to be. And I think the American people, I can share with you in Michigan, I'm cautiously optimistic about Michigan. People know that. They're smart. And you can tell them all day long that, hey, the economy's great. The economy's great. Okay, then why can't I afford my gas? How come I can't afford groceries? Why can't I afford to buy a house? They're not buying what they're selling.
Right. By the way, the port strike wasn't brought up. I mean, that was another thing. Think about what's looming. And John certainly knows. I mean, you look at the impact. It could be $5 billion a day. The supply chain, they spent time on climate change and didn't ask about something. You were a businesswoman for many, many years before Congress. Very accomplished one. What is your reaction to that?
Again, I'll say out of touch. And they don't want to talk about it because they think like they're like an ostrich. If I put my head in the sand and I don't talk about it, then hey, it really doesn't exist. But think about what that port strike is going to do. Think about what that port, and especially for me in Michigan, I'm sharing with you heavy manufacturing, heavy auto. You want to talk about a trickle down effect on top of record high inflation? We can't afford that. Right? Not to mention what's happening with the hurricanes. I mean, we need supplies. We need supply chains, and we need those ports open.
Yeah, it's astounding that was not even on.
Yeah. You also need Congressman Mike Rogers to be elected to the United States Senate from Michigan. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we love Mike Rogers. We've had him here.
I do too. He's great. Honestly, he's great. And he's doing a phenomenal job, working hard. And I'll tell you, I am very bullish on Mike Rogers again. And I am because he knows what he's doing and he speaks the truth and he can talk about the issues that Michiganders care about. He doesn't need to flip-flop. He doesn't need to change his position. He talks about what he's going to do to improve the state of Michigan.
I want to ask you, as a Michigander too, I keep thinking about it, and I always tell everybody that, the Biden and Harris have a two-state solution. It's, Michigan and Wisconsin, maybe Pennsylvania, depends, and Minnesota too, right? Minnesota too. But in Michigan, it's like they are so worried to offend certain groups. I would have loved last night, if I was moderating the debate, I would have looked at Tim Walz and I would have said, what do you say to these protesters who are waving pro-Hamas flags? See if he would answer, because he's afraid to alienate. They're playing such politics with what's going on. Your thoughts?
Well, the problem is they're irritating both sides, right? Playing in the middle of the road is the most dangerous place to be. You get run over. You're right. Right. You get run over. And he tries to play the middle of the road and he gets crushed on both sides. Listen, Israel is our greatest ally that we have in the Middle East. We need to stand with them. It's pretty clear. It's pretty simple.
Janine Pirro here for Colonial Metals Group. Colonial Metals Group helps Americans protect their future with the most trusted store of wealth in human history, physical gold and silver. If you're retiring or retired, go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/Pirro for your free Janine Pirro Colonial Metals Group Retirement Protection Kit, or call 800-965-8004. 800-965-8004 now to receive a free home safe and up to $7,500 in free silver.